All right, we are here today. All right, wait, I remember the count. Anyway, very silly. We are all here to debate the case of NRA versus Boyle. You can't. I had it before the recording started. Start recording. I'm talking to myself on recording. And we will start the arguments with the petitioner, which is the National Rifle Association of America, represented by Andy, Abdullah, and Kevin. They will have a total of 20 minutes for both sides will have a total of 20 minutes, and then we will reconvene on the last day of, or when the exam is supposed to be, that May 1st day. Yes, there will be a Zoom option. If you want to be here in person, I am bringing treats. If you don't want to be here in person, cool, stay home. I will let you Zoom in. We're just going to do a quick debriefing. That way you can get everything together for your final reaction paper. Please check Canvas. Those instructions are all on there. So you know what to do. Any last minute questions before we start the debate timer? Team NRA. I'm very shocked that this team went that way. I'm really curious to hear this argument. Are we ready? Sorry. You may begin.
Okay, so we're arguing with NRA that their First Amendment right was violated by Google in the way that Google used their power to attack NRA by threatening them to the insurance companies to cut ties with the NRA. Now, the thing about the NRA is that it is a tax-exempt organization. It's not a business. It is an organization that's advocating for gun safety and education on gun laws. The NRA has an organization that person the right to gather to advocate for political beliefs, and will attack them based on their political beliefs and for having quote unquote controversial opinions or controversial takes regarding gun laws. Now, the U.S. Constitution does protect organizations to gather to form for political reasons. And NCAACP versus Alabama, it was established that organization advocating for political beliefs is essential for the First Amendment. Now, the NRA uses its First Amendment right to advocate for rifles and guns, and Willow violated that First Amendment by threatening insurance companies to cut ties with them just because of their political beliefs. Now, also Citizens United versus FEC established as well that when it comes to regarding money, corporations can spend unlimited amount of money on political ideas.
Can you just tell me that the NRA is not in fact a business, but is instead a tax exempt? So the Citizens United held that FEC corporations are people. We haven't necessarily extended that to agencies. Are you arguing that that should be extended to agencies, and that precedent that we set in that case should be extended, and treated therefore like a business?
Wait, so you say the question one time?
For sure. When you started your argument, you were talking about how the NRA is not a business. It is a tax-exempt agency that is involved in advocacy. But Citizens United was specifically about corporations and their ability to speak and use their money to promote ideas that they want to do. Does it change anything that they are not a business registered, and that instead they are a tax exempt agency? Because that was the precedent that we set in SEC. So it doesn't change anything that they're not a business.
They're still not a business. They're simply advocating for different political beliefs. Now, I do believe it should extend to them as well, considering that they deal with politics in a way they have a right to also use the money they may raise to also advocate for certain political ideas. And there's nothing wrong with that. We all have a First Amendment right, and even organizations have that First Amendment right to advocate for their political beliefs that one they have, even if it is against the interests of the the political party in the state, not even control, but the major political party within that state, because New York is considered to be a Democratic state, and understanding that they tend to have a lot of gun laws, a lot of gun regulations. Even if the NRA is opposing those beliefs, they still have that personal right to advocate for it.
So in what context was Boyle? What context was Mr. Reed making these statements? Was he, meeting with insurance companies and telling them not to back them? Or was he, talking at an open event and just saying, don't support the NRA because they are not going to, be supportive of policies that we're trying to pass in the legislature? So in what context was he speaking out against the NRA? Because some are more coercive than others, would you not agree?
From what I understand, it was in what he told, and I believe that he sent out, or they sent out letters to the insurance companies, and they did hold a press conference. Now, I understand that the government does have a right to regulate business, but once again, this is not a business, and it came from a opposing political standpoint. It came with an interest of business, or even for the safety, it was more an interest of this is a business that we need to regulate this when that's not the case.
But if you're, I'm a little confused by the earlier we talked about how that if this were, we wanted to follow the precedent set in Citizens United versus SEC, that is treating them like a business, and we're saying we need to extend this to them, but at the same time, government can't regulate, or, sorry, the reason the government can't regulate this is because it's a business. So I'm just a little confused. Are we treating the NRA as a business or not?
No, we're not.
Not a business. So we're saying that we should extend it to cover tax exempt agencies as well. Would that also include other tax exempt agencies like Planned Parenthood, or would it include churches? Specifically, let's say large mega churches, which often have billions of dollars at their disposal and are very persuasive to their congregation.
To piggyback on, to piggyback off of these statements, more specifically about the types of comments that were being made by Boyle, in precedent in the New York Times versus Sullivan case, New York Times published an article basically criticizing the Alabama Police Commissioner Sullivan, and claims of libel were made against the newspaper by the police commissioner. So this would be a similar instance. And even though we are unaware of, well, there's a case that both libel and defamation were used because Boyle issued statements and also granted advice to these insurance firms after the entire Department of Financial Services investigation for these firms.
So this has been a problem with this particular individual previously.
Not previously, it's just that previously, the basis of this was an investigation launched by the Department of Financial Services onto
This particular individual.
Yeah, onto these certain insurance firms, which caused them to claim fault for their involvement with because their NRA endorsed. So statements like that, to be labeled as libel or defamation, have to have statements that are defamatory. And since these insurance companies pulled back and cut their relationship ties with the NRA, something had to have been damaging or to change their mind on their relationship status with the NRA and impacting the NRA negatively.
Well, and we talked a lot about this about the concept, about the concept that where one person's right ends where another person begins. So agreed, NRA has the right to, advocate as they see fit. Why doesn't Boyle have the same right to speak out against the NRA in a way that conveys his concern that this agency doesn't actually have the best interest, because he is an elected official. He's also elected to protect individuals. He believes this agency may be actively harming the situation and wants to speak out about that. So You know, maybe the letters I can see how that might be problematic, but why not, like, at a press conference, which we, like I talked about, open to the public, be able to make comments about whether or not he thinks the NRA is something that people should be supporting with their dollars.
Can you rephrase the question?
I'll make it shorter. Why doesn't his First Amendment right to speak, especially at the press conference, I'll just put the letters aside for now, because I might agree that that's incredibly coercive coming from a government official. Why not at the press conference? If he just says, if you want to see change in this area, don't support the NRA. Is that a problem?
Not that blanket statement, but any other comments added to it, can be seen as coercive as well. And then if any comments were to be, viewed as outside of Boyle's qualified immunity within their role as a government official, then that can also be an issue as well. Like, if it's outside of the public concern and more bias is played into it, similarly to Frederick with teachers and people and student speech. Yeah.
To think of what she said, and of what you said, Your Honor, why Boyle had not said anything when he was at the press conference is that maybe that during the press conference, he saw that many citizens supported the NRA and their belief systems and what the NRA has accomplished throughout, like, their, beginning to.
Ignore that. I can't the word. You get none of it.
And as well as the NRA being backed by presidential candidates as well. For example, Trump previously supported the NRA. Previous presidential candidates offered like sponsorships to the NRA. They funded them to help expand them. And with the presidential candidates lobbying for the NRA, it grows as the NRA being a successful and helpful like association rather than harmful as Boyle like states.
Is this really about gun advocacy, or is this really about the Second Amendment and your right to bear arms? That really what the NRA, is the NRA really standing by that they are doing this because they want to promote safe gun ownership and they believe Boyo is stopping that from happening?
The NRA is advocating that for the Second Amendment right, for the right to bear arms, because their right to bear arms is their constitutional right, and Boyle sending the letters requesting them to stop, like, into having the insurance companies stop, like, looking for them, helping them. It does not help the NRA because it violates their Second Amendment right to bear arms, because without the NRA's like association, then they wouldn't have regular like gun control like in certain states that have massive like positive effects on with them.
Thank you. A little extra minute, so I'm gonna give. All right. Boyle. Whenever you're ready, let's be better about watching my time. That's 1 minute goes really fast. You're gonna time it too.
No.
We're gonna clarify that she's a woman.
Oh, but who is?
Julio's a woman.
Yeah, you guys kept on saying he.
Sorry about that. Yep, sorry about that. That is, thank you. Ready?
Oh, wait, time. Before we get started, just in the off chance that there is like a lopsided amount of speaking, as a group, we decided that depending on what we cut, 2 people would talk more than the other 2.
Oh, that's totally fine.
Okay.
And also you can just put that in your, reflection on like how you guys divided up the stuff, so that even if I'm like making comments and I forget, you can remind me that way too. So please do, in case I forget by that point. Okay, sure. Thank you so much for letting me know. Ready? All right, please proceed.
All right, so NRA starts their argument by saying that Loyal threatened and coerced these insurance companies. What they failed to do is to show any proof of that threat or any proof of that coercion. their proof was press conferences or documents that newsletters that they sent out. While also describing that they were sent to insurance companies whose whole point is to assess risk and make decisions based on risk. So where's the line drawn between threats, coercion, and then just simply advice? And our argument is that this line is when there are when a reasonable person could objectively see that there's actions that can be taken based on these, and that they are, it's hard to describe, but they're written in a way that is directly threatening rather than just simply encouraging. That's when it crosses the line from coercion to threats. And
Can you provide an example of some of the language that was used that I think NRA is alleging might be coercive, so kind of maybe give some insight to whether or not this how it was phrased or may have come across to a potential citizen?
why?
Because
They
your argument is advice,
Should
it's
they
not
not be the
coercion.
ones to prove that we were coercing or threatening, rather than us having to prove that we were not threatening?
Well, it's an argument, so
Fair, okay.
if you don't have anything, you can say I don't have any.
John?
So some of the language that they're implying is that our client Boyo was suggesting that there's a reputational risk by being associated with the NRA. She never says you will be severely punished, you will be destroyed, we will take you down, you were doomed by associating with them. They said there's a reputational risk. This was right about the time that Parkland was going on. The NRA was making a big stand saying, hey, you know, we're not totally against these kids getting shot. So a state that isn't super pro Second Amendment in its looseness, to suggest that companies being all about the NRA is a reputational risk for business isn't a stretch.
Thank you for the context. Please proceed, whoever wants to pick up the manual from there.
All right, so to continue on, the NRA, I believe, knows that they don't have much there. And as they directly said that they're controversial, that is their point, that they are being targeted because they're simply a controversial speaker, and that they are weaponizing the First Amendment to scoot around these advice that Volo has provided. And simply that does not apply to normal people. They're just trying to apply it to themselves because they think they're controversial, which I'll leave that at that. They might be able to, but furthermore, these threats and coercion, there should be some aspect of punishment directly from Volo herself to make it a threat. Obviously, if you're going, it's a threat. If say I'm going to inflict something upon you. Volo was simply saying that this is something that could happen to your company should you follow the NRA, because it is something that has happened to other companies that were not associated with Volo at all.
And typically when they said this is something that happened to you, they specifically were meaning you could lose money. They didn't say you will be sanctioned by our agency, you will be sanctioned by the government, you will be sanctioned. They just said you could potentially lose money.
Correct, like John was saying, this risk assessment, risk management. It was a warning, and there was no threat of punishment from Volo directly. There was no threat of punishment from her department. She was associated with the New York governor in talking about advocacy for gun rights, but none of that was threats. None of that was threatening to say we're going to inflict harsher punishments on you if you do something like this. That was not there. It was simply a warning to say, hey, this, especially after Parkland, this NRA is not something you want to be with, someone you want to associate with. Okay. Lorna?
Something that you had just mentioned, Your Honor, about for the NRA, for the insurance companies and the banks. If there was a sense of risk for money, yes. There was recently discussed that the CEO of the NRA was actually in a lawsuit for spending the money within the nonprofit organization, and there's been remarks made that they used it for more of their personal gain. So they ended up using, there was an estimate about $500K to even $1 million being implemented into private flights, trips to Bahamas, as well as luxury stays at hotels. So yes, these insurance companies and banks are actually, their financial stance is being obviously affected. And clearly, these actions are in the follow stance, these actions are justified because we're simply trying to issue some form of guidance and stance encouraging banks and insurance.
And what was her role in the government? Like, what is her job title and what is she supposed to do as a course of her job responsibility?
Well, she's a New York state regulator, so her stance is to kind of stand on, as I think I mentioned, New York is a Democratic state. They're not a open carry. So her objective or her stance was to really advocate for those rights of what New York stands on. She also she has some form of knowledge on law. So she knows the in and outs of how New York would stand and really be imposed and not in favor of the NRA, what they go for.
And what does this team make of the previous argument that we had extended and essentially said that money is speech? You said that in Citizens United, whether you like it or not, money is speech, which means all the things that the NRA are doing, whether we like them or not, like traveling to the Bahamas and whatnot, is already settled that that's their speech. They're allowed to do and say those things. And that, and not just should like that be the case, but also we should extend our Citizens United ruling that previously covered corporations to tax exempt agencies like the NRA. I did not really like the tax exempt agency, and that's a whole other sickening thought. Anyway, but other things like churches or the ACLU or anything like that, do we then extend Citizens United to cover them as well?
So I believe kind of what you're getting at is they're arguing that hold on, my mind's stumbling. Can you restate?
Absolutely. Citizens United versus the SEC, we held that money equals speech. You can use dollars to act as speech, and we will not restrict the spending to which. And essentially, the NRA claim is that in doing what you have done, you have limited their speech by also dictating the ways in which they can spend money as an organization. And they're saying we should extend SEC to them so that more of this can be protected. If we do, that would very much make it look like advising against their financial interests would be in violation of the First Amendment, but currently we do not have that.
So I would argue
So
that.
how would you argue with respect to their request to extend Citizens United to tax exempt agencies and how they spend their money? Keeping in mind that the government doesn't make them pay taxes.
So to extend that right to the NRA, why would the individual Julio not also be extended the same right? She's not threatening anyone to take money from them, but having the NRA as a potential customer could limit money from the business itself. As stated, they're obviously not the most responsible with funds. Their leader just got in trouble for spending quite a bit of money on quite a few different things. Not only that, at the basis of this case, they were carrying an insurance that was actually illegal in the state of New York, Carry Guard. It was illegal, and it was renamed Murder Guard because it allowed people who committed a murder to not have the victim come back to them financially. Julio, being the Department of Financial Services superintendent for the entire state of New York, has a little bit of knowledge in finances. These were not threats to these insurance companies. These were warnings saying by doing business with these people and carrying an illegal insurance, which we're going to come after you for because it is illegal, we will lessen the severity of your punishment if you part ways with them, because this is not a great look for you. They're asking you to provide an illegal insurance. It's costing you money. If money equals speech, They're taking away your speech, not Voyo. Voyo is offering to give them money back by lessening the penalties against them for doing something illegal.
Your argument is, the NRA has actually silenced the speech of other tax exempt agencies. These insurance, actually not even tax exempt agencies, other businesses, by saying that they can't engage in conversations about risk assessments with a state regulator. Based on what either party knows about a potential insurance recipient.
Yes, this is essentially Voyo being the mother of her state in this financial category, trying to protect the children, these businesses within her own state.
And then to add on that, as we mentioned before about Parkland shooting, that's kind of the push for all of this. And if we kind of think about the parents' patria, where parents give up the authority, if we really put into perspective, like kids, she has every right as a government official to really determine or to at least give off 4 names.
Was she elected? She appointed to this position.
She was appointed, yeah. Yeah, I think it was like she had the opportunity to like, I think it was back before, like late 2016, it was, yeah.
I'm asking because typically if we're talking about a parents patria situation, it holds much stronger argument if that person is also the person that people that New York elected to represent them, right? That's why I was asking, so, but if that's not the case, it's. Still, I understand what you're saying, she's trying to act in this, caring, not just about, the constituents that she is regulating, but also caring about the businesses in which, you know, she's supposed to make advice and give advice to, so. I see that, okay, keep on.
To also further explain to what John and Marina said is that basically Voyo is she's simply targeting, you know, illegal insurance products. Like, you know, the other side is saying that, you know, she threatened, you know, NRA, but it couldn't be, you know, any threatened because the guidance letter they didn't explicitly threaten to take any action against insurers who continue to do lawful business with the NRA. Also, for this thing, what Voyo said is that you know, she encouraged insurers to continue evaluating and managing their risk, including reputational risk that may arise from their dealings with the NRA or similar gun promotion organization. Which basically means that overall, like Alito said in the statement, if you know, if Voyo would pull out a pistol, you know, and you know, to the heads of the company, encourage them to drop ties with the NRA, it wouldn't be, you know, it wouldn't be seen enough to actually persuade the companies to actually drop ties, you know, with the NRA. So so the point that I'm trying to make is that Voyo, you know, did not make any threatening statements or anything like that.
And, but wouldn't you agree that a person who is like, as your co-counsel said, kind of like the mother of the state, then telling her children, you can't play with that kid. And if you play with that kid, other kids are gonna think something's wrong with you. You don't think that might be a little coercive to those independent businesses who have to continue regulation by this particular individual? And again, that's not to say that there's any more language in there. It's more about her position of power and authority to regulate businesses. Does that not give some concern for how she is going about perhaps discriminatorily enforcing law or making suggestions to businesses who, again, are gonna have to answer to her as far as regulation is concerned?
That would imply that her power is a little bit beyond what it actually is. She doesn't have the ability to disband these organizations and these businesses. The fines that were levied against the insurance companies were from them carrying an illegal insurance that they were unable to provide in New York, but did anyway. She couldn't show up to the Lockton Group, which actually has documentation showing that they were going to part ways from the NRA before again this. You took me off at the sign.
The NRA, the agency had already shown that they were gonna part ways with the NRA before this.
Yeah.
Before the letters were sent out.
So her saying you needed a part wasn't even necessary. It was already in the works. It had already been thought upon once upon a time. And again, she's not forcing anyone to do anything. It's just a suggestion. Their punishment was from actions of their own.
And, keep on. Sorry, I'm gonna think about the next question.
So one thing you mentioned is that, it was almost like saying, don't go play with that kid, but what Volo did is not say, don't go play with that kid. She said, that kid likes to shoot people, I wouldn't go over there if I were you. And a reasonable insurance company would probably be like, or a reasonable child would probably be like, okay, I don't wanna throw myself, my business, my entire life, livelihood at risk by going over there, so I'm not going to. There wasn't, don't go over there, it was, hey, this is a bad idea if you do.
Where's the line between that and what you just said, though, Counselor?
I
We've
believe,
gotta make a rule, we're gonna make some kind of ruling that people are gonna be able to go forward from here and follow. So assuming that we would hold in your position, where's the line between a person in a position of power making a suggestion and a person in a position of power making a demand? Where's the line?
I would say that it's if the companies that she reached out to could have still done what they wanted. And they could have continued to associate with the NRA, it was up to them.
But as John said, they couldn't because they were providing, it would have to be another kind that it was an illegal insurance, so they couldn't continue to do business with the NRA.
In that specific insurance section, that was illegal, which I believe is. They would have been prosecuted if they continued to do that. But they could have continued to do that and they could have received prosecution. And that is also something Bola mentioned, that they're selling illegal stuff, you're selling illegal stuff, you're gonna be associated with that. But go ahead, if you wanna do that, then go ahead. And so I believe that the line would be, do not do that, you cannot do that. And they were still allowed to do that. Granted, they were gonna face punishments, but it wasn't because of Bolo, it was because of the NRA and their illegal insurance.
I was.
Go ahead.
So we keep using this word threat, that we threaten these businesses if they continue to do things with the NRA. But the government looks for four things when they're talking about threat. It's whether the speech referred to adverse consequences, which she's already stated was not part of any agreement or any word. It was, I can almost even reward you by lessening what you did to yourself by having this illegal insurance. The official word choice, which nothing stands out, that she went after them aggressively. She sent a few letters, made a few press conferences. Nothing abnormal there. Most government officials do those things. Whether the official's speech was perceived as a threat. And then there is precedent on what is considered a threat by Cameron versus Colorado. The Supreme Court saw this, and it would be by what a reasonable person would decide is an actual threat. And this would not fall under that. She didn't threaten them with anything. She said, I'm going to help you even if you do these things. And then whether the official had regulatory authority over the conduct at issue, which I guess could be bent to say that she does. But again, she didn't have the ability to punish them for dealing with the NRA. The punishment that was coming was from something they had already done previously, which was having an illegal insurance, which the NRA pushed them to do and to hold and to have for them.
So finally, I believe that the previous courts have all said that we're not really listening to the NRA, we don't understand what they're going at. I believe that this should continue to be the precedent, and that by creating a new law that says you can't do this, that would bring so many more cases to your attention, that would bring so many more cases. The entire career of politicians who are advocating for different things would be worthless. It's not included in that.
All right. Team NRA, you have 9 minutes on the clock. Oh, that was 90, that's not how many. I gotta hear about that point. Ready? 9 minutes on the clock. Rebuttal. Are you ready?
Right.
You may begin.
Your Honor, Boyle, as Ben and John have previously stated, that Boyle supposedly told them that told the insurance companies that they were selling illegal products through the NRA. Where's the proof that these insurance companies were selling illegal insurance products through the NRA? Are there documentations, are there files? Because even if certain insurance companies were doing something illegal, they would have to leave a paper trail to keep track of it, to keep track of where their money is being spent.
Was there an investigation about the insurance companies, and that's what led to the discovery that they were all providing, an illegal product, and that's why she said you can't do the illegal product, you can keep your business, don't recommend it, but don't sell it, so. Wouldn't that have produced fatal documentation?
It would have, but over here when it says, that the companies, they can continue doing business, just not with the NRA, that is further along that the NRA is losing potential like insurance policies through them. Because if the NRA loses insurance, then the NRA cannot like help others, like whether they lose a building, whether they have injuries within their association. They can't have any other insurance companies to help them because Boyle has told them that you can continue doing business just not with the NRA. And I would continue to back you and fund you through your insurance companies if you stop with the NRA. So Boyle is purposely saying that if you don't help the NRA, I will help you, but if they don't help the NRA, what insurance company will help the NRA and what insurance company will help the people that are within the NRA?
So you're saying that by not providing, or, and correct me if I'm wrong, that by kind of also not providing another option by saying like, yes, this is problematic and. Or by essentially just kind of focusing on the insurance companies that went along with what she wanted to do and dispensing with those that didn't, she was essentially endorsing those and not endorsing whatever the NRA was doing.
Exactly.
Okay, I want you guys to respond, how you so choose, and divide up how you so choose with the 4 factors that John just gave us for how we determine whether or not a case is, or whether or not a statement is a threat. So, you know, they've already conceded that they were a part of, that she is a part of the regulatory body, that she is in a position of authority. They conceded the 3rd one. What do you make of the 1st one? There's no threat, or there's no, sorry. There is no, assessment of punishment, from my understanding. She didn't, promise a punishment to anyone. Nor was she in the position to necessarily give one. She's in the position to, as you pointed out, essentially kind of target her help towards people that she agrees with and not agrees with, which would normally be a problem, absolutely. But what about the other 3 factors? So again, we're conceding that last one. They conceded it. She's got some power in the, but what about the fact that, you know, she's not holding the gun to anyone's head, there's no punishment that was meted technically, you know, again, you can say that lack of benefit was, or lack of assistance might have harmed them. What about the other factors?
She announced as well that she was going to impose certain fines against them.
Okay.
And the thing to add on to consider the draft, I believe, is also that I believe originally it was 1 or 3 insurance companies that she was talking to, but in the end, it was multiple other companies that also cut ties with the NRA. So they saw what's going on here. And they said, well, we don't want that to happen to us, so we're gonna cut the NRA right now before she comes for us as well. I think that's enough to suggest that it was a threat. And also adding on, this is also a case regarding the First Amendment right. That the NRA has a right to advocate, even if those opinions are not popular within that state. They have a right to advocate for what they believe in. Now, by doing this, Google is essentially silencing them, trying to almost make them really unpopular, more unpopular than we already are in the state. But this also suggests that other states, probably that, for example, Tennessee being a reflected state, could essentially do this to organizations that they find to be opposing them, like Planned Parenthood.
That's a great point. What is, I wish I could ask you guys that. What, yeah, in a theory, what would stop, so I just want you to like go out and expand on that a little bit more, because in theory, if I agree with their side, then what would stop a state like Tennessee's regulators from, let's say, shutting down or encouraging insurance companies to not support something like the ACLU or the NAACP or any of the other organizations that advocate in this state for things that, or any kind of pride organization or any kind of trans rights organization. Well, how would we respond to that? And I don't think it would be good. So that's more, I don't think you can expand anymore, but I think that's a great point that you really didn't, damn, you really threw me for that one.
Can I answer that one afterwards?
Yes, you can. Please keep on, keep talking.
Well, I think that was it. I think that, well, at least for me, that this is a case about the First Amendment right, more than anything, regardless of what was, regardless of, I think, it being in business or whatever. The problem here is that Bulo had a position of power that was given to her by a Democratic, the governor that said and called the NRA its enemy, the enemy of the people. So Bulo is not coming from a place of, this is for the safety, this is for the job that I have to do. It's coming because I don't agree with you, I don't like your political beliefs, and I need to try to silence you.
Is there another method that she could have used to affect this? The other side is saying, you know, there's a financial interest. She has to be on the lookout for these businesses as their regulator and their financial interests, and has to, in some capacity of her job, advise in that regard. Is there a way that the NRA can articulate that they would have agreed with the advising of the part and felt that it was not stepping on their First Amendment right? How would the NRA, being the aggrieved party, feel like that should have been addressed? What would have been your least restrictive alternative if we want to use that language?
Our least restrictive alternative, Your Honor, would be that Boyle use a petition, advise a petition like to a certain like citizen of New York to sign whether they are for or against the NRA keeping like their position in the state.
So maybe I'm a little unclear. Would the outcome in this case been that the NRA effectively is like banned from New York? Would that have been the situation? Or this is not New York, where are we at, New York?
Yes.
Yeah, so would that have been the case that if this were allowed to go forward, they're effectively banned? Is that the case? Is that my understanding? No.
Essentially, they'll be restricted to what the insurance policies that they have with these insurance companies. They'll be restricting them and making it hard to protect as well the people that may have this insurance that is being provided to them.
But as the other side pointed out, it's legal insurance, because you can't have someone insured who's committed homicide, like that we don't allow that, and I don't know how most states don't allow that actually. So how would they have gone about that anyway? The NRA would have been prosecuted, as the other two pointed out. And so would their insurance agencies for that matter. So how do you avoid that? Even if we don't have her speech issue. So would you concede that if it hadn't been for the letters or the press conference, that they probably would have gone this direction anyway?
You say if it wasn't,
You guys got 30 more seconds. Keep on.
you say if it wasn't.
Yeah.
That's a big if, that's more like just if, like, but that did not happen here. What happened was she sent out letters and she made a press conference and she clearly stated that there will be leniency for those companies that are with them, and that there will be, she used her power again. She used her authority to go against this organization that she was against. You said if, but that's if, and this is not the case here, it's not if, it's what happened. And what happened was she did overuse her power.
All right, you were. Case is taking another submission. Thank you so much. All right, guys, did a great job. We'll fully debrief a little. Yeah, you guys did a great job. Especially that last part, I was like, oh man, you guys are stuck, and you were like, hey, it's not it, it's what happened. Don't ever think that that is not a brilliant move, that is fucking brilliant, because as judge, what am I supposed to be like? Oh, you're right, I'm not here to decide hypotheticals, I'm here to decide.
Yeah, you ate that.
I am here to decide, we're here to decide what actually happened, and we're not here to sit and pontificate about hypotheticals. That, like, I know you don't feel like that was great, like, that was, if that had happened in a real courtroom, I would have been like, oh, fuck, we're all screwed now. That's great, that was great, great job, especially because John really did go dirty, he pulled that rule out and just like, cited, boom, 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 no, we don't have that, and they can't make that, so. He really did go dirty a little bit on that, but you had a very good comeback, which is like, okay, that's it, and she still has a position of power, and it still happened. Do something about it, great. So we'll do a little bit more, breakdowns, and, of the case itself and, going back on the rules and stuff, but, especially, like I said, you guys being down team members and all that good stuff, guys, did a great job, you should be very proud of yourself. You guys did an excellent job as well, I am very proud of all of you, please tell me that when you get to law school, you are intending to do both moot court and trial advocacy, because what we do in here is moot court. Trial ad is like different, you need to do both. You need to.
So when we get to.
All right, great job, everyone. I will see you either in your London with 5 times on May 1st. I know. Exam time, so it's weird time. It is at 1. I will send out a reminder on Canvas and an email before it happens. But if I don't see you again, especially just those of you who are graduating, congratulations. And it's been a privilege to see all of you. And thank you very much. So I will see you all soon.
I mean, you'll get to see us on.